What's up YouTube? My name is Lexi. Welcome to my channel. In today's video I'm finally going to be wrapping up season 3 of the Ultimatum. I apologize this video is so late. There was just a lot going on with the going-ons, but we're here and we are here to finish this up and tie this up with a bow and let this go. Before I get into any of my thoughts, I want to wish you a very happy 2025. Welcome, baby. Let this year be the year of your dreams. I hope that you get your car, your apartment, your engagement, whatever it is that you are manifesting in 2025. I hope that you get that and more. So cheers to you. And if you like my vibe, please subscribe. Now, without further ado, let's get into this so we can finally put all of this drama and tea to rest and we can talk about some other things. So we open up episode 10 with the reunion. First couple that we actually are talking to is Mariah and Caleb, and they look amazing. They're still engaged. They still are on track to actually, like, you know, solidify their nuptials. They said that they're planning for July or like 2026, summer of 2026. So that's what they are preparing themselves for. They've been doing a lot of traveling, just really spending a lot of time together, etc., etc. So then Nick basically asked Arya, you know, they were in a trial marriage together, like, if there has been any communication between Arya and Caleb, and both Caleb and Mariah, they're just like, nah, we don't know anything, we don't know them, da 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 da. So Caleb says no, but then Arya, she turns around and she's just like, oh, but you were liking my pictures, oh, but you were like in my stories for a few weeks, da, 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 da. Oh, but you blocked me. So basically just confirming that there actually has been some form of a social media, some form of contact, and Mariah was like completely taken aback by it because she didn't know that they were still in communication. And then after that, she actually got triggered because she was recalling and remembering just what the footage was showing her in regards to Caleb's time with Arya, because we very much so were aware and we all saw like the connection that the two of them had, and Caleb always tried downplayed it. That Caleb was always just like, you know, it's a great friendship, it's this, it's that, but he never actually admitted that there was an emotional connection. And Scotty jumps in as well, and he also just kind of he's reiterating the fact that he was honest with and transparent with Arya because he didn't want there to be any surprises when she's watching back the footage. And that is what that's what Caleb kind of denied Mariah to do. And then Arya also jumps back and she says, you know, you were actually gaslighting her and you weren't giving her the reassurance that she was looking for even when they were back together in the trial marriage. And to a certain degree, like, that's true, but I think that Caleb's point the whole time in not actually acknowledging her feelings and acknowledging that there was a connection was the fact that he did not want to disrespect his relationship. I think he was very like particular with how he did the experiment because he didn't want to come off as somebody who was just trying to be nefarious essentially or whatever. And I think that also because Mariah is also like a very like codependent, very like needy partner and whatnot, I think that he just did not want to set her off and he didn't want to give her information that she just would not been able to handle. And Mariah, she's just like, you know, I'm strong, I'm this, like, I'm able to handle the truth. And
I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
I'm just like, girl, you cannot handle the truth. Arya had also said in her like address to Mariah and Caleb that she felt like Mariah was very insecure. She also puts this on game that Mariah was over here having like 2-hour conversations with Caleb in the bathroom. So she felt like, you know, she feels that their relationship and the way that they present it is very fake and it's not as solid and secure as people might think that it is. And I'm just like, I could see that. I could definitely see that. But I still also feel like the energy that she has towards Caleb, I think that it would be better challenged or better channeled towards Scotty. This whole time, like, you presenting yourself to be this like really like quiet, really like non-compatible woman or whatever, and to see you just kind of jump out of character to go heavy and go hard on Caleb just because he didn't acknowledge a emotional connection with you, versus you've been sitting down here being gaslit and tolerating volatile actions with Scotty. The two were not really computing for me personally watching it. Caleb also acknowledged, you know, like he was also liking Zaynab's pictures and whatnot, so he didn't think that it might have been like that big of a deal. Like I said, like we already knew that he was not actually going to leave Mariah in this experience, so I think he just wanted to be fair across the board with all of that. But he does ultimately admit that there was an emotional connection, and I do think that he should have been honest about that. It wouldn't have been so much of a surprise to Mariah. So, but nonetheless, the two are engaged. The two are going to continue to be together, and that is how we are leaving off with Mariah and Caleb. Next, we get into Scotty and Aria. Scotty and Aria, at this point in time, they are no longer engaged, and thank God. Hallelujah. Happy day. Oh, happy day. Oh, happy day. Because they didn't need to be together in the first place. So I was very happy to find that information out. Aria actually asked Scotty to go to couples therapy, which was 1,000% necessary because he was crazy. So she wanted to get him some therapy. She wanted to see how they could work on their communication styles because, you know, as much as he was in the experience talking about, oh, like, I could see the changes. And she even deluded herself, I think in episode 8. And she was just like, I could see the changes. And I'm just like, what are the changes in the room with us? Because I most certainly am not seeing any of the changes. So I think that she wanted to believe that there was changes. And also based off of the things that he said during the proposal, I think that she really wanted to hold on and hold firm that that was going to be like what their lives are going to look like going forward. But it turns out that he was still the same old Scotty at the end of the day. Nick and Vanessa, they asked her, like, when did you call off the engagement? She said the next day.
No, that's right.
Period. I think that she just didn't want to embarrass him. And I think she also alludes to the same when she went on Nick Viall. I think that she had just said yes because she was just extremely nervous in terms of like what Scotty was going to do, because Scotty is a very unstable and very insecure person, and I think that she just didn't want to derail him. So she wanted to live together to kind of like see how that experience was going to go for them. And I also thought that that was alarming because I'm just like, girl, you saw what he was like for the trial marriage, and this was the first time that they were ever like actually in like a living arrangement together because they live so far apart. So I'm just like, you saw how that went, and you saw how he was gaslighting you, and you saw that you were having arguments, you saw that that was going to be a terrible situation. It's like, I don't really understand why she continued to put herself in that situation, but I think that it's because like he really worked on her self-esteem to a point where she was just unable to really just say like, I have had enough. He was not loving her the way that she wanted to be loved. And basically the fact that he was not even willing to go to couples therapy, or he wasn't able to talk through the problems, that really just indicated that there was just nothing left for her in this relationship anymore. As they're talking about the therapy portion, Scotty jumps in and he's just like, you wanted to do it on your time. And she's just like, a year later, like a year into it of her asking for the therapy and it's not being done. And I'm just like, no, he wanted to gaslight you and he wants to do things on his own time. Like, you are being a victim again. So then that triggers her because she's just like, well, what's going on? So so then she gets triggered and she's just like, you know, should I tell them what's been going on? And she basically reveals that she ended up having a death in the family. Her grandmother had passed away and she was extremely close to her grandmother, and she was grieving that. And then on top of that, she actually suffered a miscarriage. And I 1000%, I know it's gonna sound crazy, but it's gonna sound really crazy, but I think that that was just a blessing. Scotty is not somebody who she needed to have a permanent tie to. As unfortunate as a miscarriage is, sometimes it is for your benefit. Sometimes it's because you're just like, you're about to bring life, or you're about to forge a life with somebody who you just do not need to have permanent ties with whatsoever. You have to be very careful with the man who, well, as a woman, you know, you have to be very careful with the person who you are selecting to create life with. I think that it was a blessing in disguise that she had that miscarriage. I also believe that dealing with somebody like Scotty, somebody who was going to have your stress levels up and down, circling around, doing the most, like, that is not an environment that is conducive for a child. So I think that because of the stress of everything going on with Scotty, because of the stress of her grandmother, because of just the stress of the experience, like just everything that's going on or whatever, it's the perfect recipe for her to unfortunately suffer that loss. She just says that she left because she was emotionally just drained. She was emotionally tired. And I couldn't agree more. Like that's a whole lot. That's a lot for anybody to handle, and a lot of stress on the body. So I very much so understand where she's coming from. Like Nick also asked Zaina, oh, like, you know, were you surprised? And Zaina says that, yeah, she was actually really surprised that Arya even said yes in the first place, because Zaina knows that Scotty is a terror to be around. When Scotty was on the Viall Files, Scotty is a narcissist. And one thing that a narcissist does not like is to have their reputation to be smeared, or for it to not appear in a way that is going to be like upholding to their beliefs that they have of themselves. So he was listening to him on the Viall Files, like he really was able to really hunker down on the fact that he thinks that he just got a bad edit. He's just, you know, he's really calm, he's really collected, and listening to him, you would think, oh, you know what, maybe he's not as bad as you think. Maybe he's not as, like, you know, as crazy. But what I will say is that at the point that the Viall Files had him on, it was only up until episode 5. So there were still, like, continuous episodes after that. And he's basically just sitting there gaslighting the hell out of the cast. So he is just saying that he was horrified by his actions on screen. He's looking at it and basically like he's coming across as somebody who just wants to be in control all the time, which he does. He infers that the scene where he's talking to Zaina about the cryotherapy and the hot air balloon, he said that it was a joke and they were laughing the whole time. It wasn't serious. And when he brought up the whole eating with her situation, like he thought that that was just like a funny kiki haha moment, and they just basically montaged the whole thing together to make it seem as if he was being extremely unreasonable. But that was very swiftly debunked by Zaina when she had her interview with the Viall Files, and she said no, there was actually no jokes there. So Nick, at a point in time, he reveals that they were speaking about him on the pod, and Scotty says, you know, I heard your take, I heard this, I heard that. And Scotty is not about to sit down here and be in the front of you, somebody who is actually talking badly about him, and not take that opportunity to try to clean up his image, or try to, like, there's defending yourself, and then there's also just putting on a whole full new caricature of yourself on in front of somebody. And that's exactly what he did. Now, when Arya went on the Viall Files, what was crazy is that the first thing that he says, she says, like, you know, she watched the interview, and then he says that we felt like we were being gaslit the whole time. So they already weren't feeling they were getting an authentic experience with Scotty, because Scotty is just sitting up there just trying to charm everybody and make it seem as if he's better than he is. Arya also acknowledges that Scotty was on this platform fighting for his life.
I'm fighting for my life. Y'all killing me with this.
Fighting for his life and trying to, you know, be something that he's not, because he doesn't want the public to perceive him as just this like terror and danger, etc., etc. She reveals that Scotty's family even had reached out to her and was watching all the scenes back and watching how he treated her, and she acknowledges that they said that they're actually going to be staging an intervention with Scotty, because they all are seeing that that was actually no way for Arya to have been treated, and they're very apologetic about the situation. And I'm just like, period, because that man needs help. Also, Arya had also acknowledged that watching back the show, she sees that connection that actually was taking place between Scotty and Zaina. She felt like there were just a lot of discrepancies in what he had said he experienced in the connection with Zaina versus what actually she saw. So we get over to Zaina and JR. At this moment in time, they are still broken up. Thank God. She's sitting down next to Nick, and he's sitting down next to Sandy. Now, there's a lot that goes on in this portion, and I do not like JR. I have talked about him numerous times already. I do not like JR whatsoever. However, a broken clock is right twice a day. And I hated Zaina for making me side with this man.
I was rooting for you. We were all rooting for you. How dare you?
Because there were critical things that she missed, and critical things that were said, and critical things that were done that really should have just solidified and communicated that this relationship was over far before you even arrived here at the ultimatum. After the show, once again, we saw him tell her on national TV that he is not ready to become the husband that she needs him to be. I don't know about y'all, but if I went on national TV, if I was rejected on national TV by somebody, I don't need to be told 2, 3, 4, 5 times about myself. Say it once and I am going to gracefully pick my things up and move on with myself, okay? I might cry, I might be a little sad about it, obviously, but I am going to move forward. Now, that is not the approach that Dana took, and I was very upset. It's around Christmas time, apparently, and she said that they spent Christmas together and she got him a gift. Why did you get him a gift? Her whole piece is that she's searching for closure. I've had to learn eventually, like, closure is the biggest lie of a relationship. The way that the person treated you, the way that the person put things, you know, put you through certain things or whatever, you, within yourself, you have the almighty power and almighty authorization to just say, I am not going to allow this behavior to continue in my life. You are the closure. On top of that, you're going to just continuously have these conversations that are like you butting heads with somebody. It just does not make sense. The action spoke for itself. There is nothing about that says that I needed to continue to pursue this connection, and that's what she did, and I was really just floored the entire segment. So she says that they spent Christmas together and he didn't get her a gift, and then he apparently got her a gift 3 days later after that. And apparently these two, they moved out, but they moved out across the street from each other. To me, that is awkward. I don't want to be in the same complex. I don't want to be around you. She's giving all her recants and whatnot, but what I will say, because I must have grace with JR said on the couch numerous times that he was trying to process things. He's trying to process, he's trying to get himself together. He's not in a place where he needs to be thinking about marriage. Like, he's trying to process. And she keeps asking him, you know, like, what are we doing? What's going on? His birthday comes around, and once again, she took him to the Ritz-Carlton. He had like a massage and a steak dinner.
I was rooting for you. We were all rooting for you. How dare you?
Again, Zaina, why? What is going on? Like, why are we spending, you know, valuable resources or whatever? Take that, like, energy, that love, that, like, whatever, that dedication, and give that to yourself. And if you feel like you just feel the need to give him something that is worth, like, the relationship that you are currently having at that very moment in time. I don't understand how that translates to somebody saying, I'm going to give you a Ritz-Carlton massage and a steak dinner, and then when her birthday rolled around, he didn't do anything for her. And what he said, it pissed me off to no return. But like I said, a broken clock is right once, twice a day. He said, did I ask you for any of those things? And initially I was just like, but it's the truth. He asked her for space. He asked her that he needed time to process. He says that she was controlling because she was asking him, you know, like, are we talking to other people? She didn't want him to be talking to other people. And he is just like, I'm trying to process certain things. When it was her birthday, he had actually asked her if she would be open to dinner. She said that she was, but the day of, he canceled. Red flag. Red flag, it's my birthday and I just sent you to the Ritz-Carlton and a steak dinner. What you are going to do is take me somewhere.
I'm from around the way. I'm leaving with something.
It took that moment for her to really just say, okay, I'm no longer going to pour any more energy into this relationship. I'm going to pour all that energy into myself, and I'm going to work on myself. And kudos to her for realizing that. But I think that I was so disappointed to hear this segment, because I'm just like, you didn't even have to go through any of this whatsoever. You didn't have to be put in a position to look stupid. You didn't have to be put in a position to feel crazy with these announcements. Like, you literally did not have to go through any of this at all if you had just accepted his answer at face value for whatever it was during the ultimatum. If you felt like he made a mistake, you know, it's not on you to go and rectify that, or it's not on you to feel like I need to get him back to the finish line. Like, no, let him feel whatever he's gonna feel. Let him be by himself. Let him process. Let him, you know, mull things over or whatever. But because you keep interjecting yourself, like, you're really interfering his process in order to really see if he made a mistake or not.
Learn something from this.
From his point of view, he says that he supports her and he wishes her well. He complimented her and said that she looked beautiful, and he is basically saying, like, you know, like, I wish you well. I wish you well on all of your endeavors and whatnot. But he's still saying that he is still not in a position where he wants to pick up and resolve things with Zaina. So then she also reveals to us during this segment that before they even got there, like 24 hours before they even got to the ultimatum, a woman had reached out to Zaina and she had showed screenshots of like JR and her flirting, and I'm just like, Zaina, that was a red flag. And she acknowledges the same thing. She said that it was red flag after red flag that was coming up for her, but she just still continued this process. And I'm just like, Zaina, I think that you did a lot of projecting. She did a lot of projecting. She did a lot of like just hyping up this relationship to be something that it actually, like, full-fledged was not. So just to pivot here real quick, back on the Viall Files, she had her interview with them and she reveals even more things that I'm just like, Zaina, what is going on? So she revealed that 6 months before, so basically, like, they were together for 3 years. So the first 2 years, these two are like happy, they're figuring things out, it's like a honeymoon phase. And then all of a sudden, when he made a switch between like lifestyles, he switched from like being in a corporate position to now fitness, you know, things really took a turn. So 6 months before, you know, they had went out to Jamaica, it was her birthday, and she was posting him and she had him all over the page. But once he made a pivot over to fitness, then all of a sudden he was asking her just like, you know, don't comment on my pictures, don't like my stuff, because I want to be perceived as single. That is a breakup right there. So now jumping back with her and JR's relationship in the experience, talking about her connection with Scotty. So with her connection with Scotty, like, they had gotten along until the boys' night situation. She reveals that after boys' night, like, that energy that he had, like that like stoic, weird Darth Vader kind of like energy that he had, basically continued for like the last 4 days of the experience, and then she ended up like leaving him for the last 3. She was also like defending JR with her life, because, and I remember there was like a scene, I think, when they had switched back and she was just like, I can't believe that you was out here kissing that you kissed Sandy or whatever, because you've been so committed to me, like, I didn't even think that that was a possibility. And I'm just like, Zaina, like, I had felt like that was problematic then, but even more reinforced again now, because even so, like, them even coming onto this experience, like, she had brought it up to him as a joke, but he was just like, no, like, I think we should go and do it. And she thought that that was an indicator of somebody who was working on the relationship, because she's going from a position of being hidden on his page and in his life or whatever, to now being like full-fledged in like full visibility or whatever. And I suppose that I could understand like a little nugget of a very, very, very tiny nugget of me is like, I could kind of see that. However, the more alarming, jarring portion of me would have been like, no, this is an experience. This is something where you're going to be open to other people. You're already having me in the background. I don't feel secure in that situation. And on top of that, this is an experience where you're just going to be getting tons of exposure. How do I know that you're coming on here for the right reasons? Like, I would have been extremely, like, I wouldn't have even like gone on this experience. JR really just had no regard at all for Zaina, for her feelings, etc., etc. Like, even so much so, like, over at the changeover episode, I think she also acknowledges this part in the Viall Files interview that she had, and she was saying how, like, you know, he was doing all that because he was trying to get under Nick's skin. And simultaneously this like disregarding her or her feelings or like whatever else might be coming up in that moment. There's so many red flags, and I just, like I said, I just really hate that it took Zaina that long to really like just say that I don't need to be in this relationship anymore. She had a QR code on her one of her nails, and she asked Nick for like his phone, and she was able to basically upload a file that said receipts. The receipts was basically in regards to guys night and the whole hall pass situation. So in the what I wish that the tea was a little bit more simmering hot. If he was gonna go through all of that, I wish that the tea was actually piping hot, but it was not. The tea actually incriminated herself. Arya had confided in Scotty in regards to the fact that she felt like guys were here for a hall pass. And that is what Zaina had brought back up to JR. And JR was just like, well, what the F? Like, what do I have to do with any of that? Blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, clearly that was about you. And basically, essentially, JR took all of his frustrations that he felt in that moment and projected all of that onto Scott. It very much so gave, like, if she had never texted him and asked him what she asked him, there would be no mention of a said hall pass. Nick and Vanessa's production team decided to go off about the hall pass situation, and they made a video montage of JR just being explicitly creepy with the women in this experience. So back to Arya's interview real quick before I even get into this. Like, Arya, over when she was on the Viall Files, she said that her boundaries would not have been respected had she matched up with JR, because that was the other person that she was connecting with. And you know, I was so happy that he decided to go with Sandy and not Arya. But when we saw the compilation of the videos and how things went down with these people, he was over here just being gross with her. Just like, oh, I could get you pregnant in 3 weeks. I could do this. I could do that. He was asking her for foot stuff. JR was over here filling up on Arya, and she was not having it. She was just like, you know, I'm not going to have sex with you. And he was just like, well, how far could we get? You know, there's no cameras in the room. How far could we get? He said that he's not here for a hall pass and he's not here for sex, but he likes a challenge. So he tells Arya that, oh, like, I like a blowjob with a vibrator. And I'm just like, this is all being recorded, and this man is really conducting himself this way. This is insane. And then the final icing of the cake is when they were at the second cocktail party, and when he was sitting down there on that couch with Micah, and he was all, you know, I've never been a white girl, da da da. Like, he explicitly states, I am here for a hall pass. So therefore, nobody started the hall pass rumor. Your actions and you actually started the hall pass rumor. Like, he is such a lame and such a terrible person to me.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
I do not want to see JR anymore, and I'm just so mad because, like, I don't follow this man. I did not look for this man, nothing, but he now all of a sudden he just pops up on my Instagram feed. It's like so annoying now. He said that also in his montage, like, he also had said that, oh, like, I like Zay and Randall, like all the people from season 1. Ironically, the people who were over here messing around and doing things that, you know, doing things on their partner or whatever, those were his idols. Those were the people that he was looking up to. So Zaina, you definitely dodged a bullet. But like I said, I'm very disappointed by the fact that it took you this long to really realize how much of a danger to society JR is. Zaina also is upset with Sandy because she's just like, you know, you didn't have to talk to me the way that you did over at Girls Night. Zaina also calls out JR for downplaying the relationship that he had, or like for downplaying the connection that he had with Sandy. And then he's just like, you know, like, I had forgotten about the third kiss. And it's just like, you were kissing this lady the entire time that you were there with her. So why do you keep putting like a number that's not even accurate? Like, what are you talking about, JR? So she's sitting down with Nick, and they feel like they're on the unbothered side of the couch. Nick and her are saying that they're very much so over it, but they also do kind of, you know, they felt like in watching the season back, they very much so feel as if something happened. So we finally get to recap Nick and Sandy. They are no longer together. Nick basically is finally getting help for his substance abuse. So he was apparently like drinking very heavily while he was on the show, and even when did some of that in front of Vanessa and Dave. And also, lo and behold, Dave and Vanessa actually show up in this reunion. So they show up, and Vanessa first gets into her relationship with Nick. She felt like he lied to her about like her being about being homeschooled. Feel that he was confiding in her about certain things and would talk to her like off camera or off this or off that. So she felt like it was shady, and she also just felt like this connection was not going to be somewhere where she would be able to do productive growth at the end of the day. And I get that. They asked her, just like, like, you didn't feel the need to say bye, and she was just like, well, no, we only knew these people for like 3 hours. This really wasn't that serious. Apparently Nick had reached out to Vanessa to see if she was going to be there, and he just felt like, like it would provide a lot of clarity for certain things if she came. So as Vanessa is recapping and letting us know about the abuse that, like the substance abuse that Nick was going through, Sandy was just like, can you attest to that? Can you like say more about the situation? And she felt very out of place, but I think like Sandy in that moment, like she just had a moment of kinship, and she was finally feeling like, okay, like this person also sees the problems that I have been experiencing with him for the past 2.5 years. But my thing as well is also just like, you've been in here for 2.5 years. Why, like, you don't have to stay in a situation like that with somebody who is crashing out like that. So now that brings me to the interview that they have in the Viall Files, which also just kind of skews their perception in the reunion, but we're just gonna get into it. On the Viall Files, these people confess that they knew each other for 2.5 years, but they only really were like seriously dating for the last 9 months, and then after that their relationship was on and off all the time, always arguing, always breaking up to make up. And I'm just like, this was trauma. Like, as much as we were giving all this smoke to Zaina and JR, these two people played in our face, and these people did not have any business being on this show whatsoever. So on the Viall Files, Nick is kind of just saying that, he wanted to be with her, and they kind of just wanted to. I'm just like, dude, are you guys aware that this show does end in an engagement for marriage? Like, this is not some honky-dory show that you just go on and you just doing things on a whim. Like, no, like there's an actual purpose or like a permanent linkage. And she's saying that they were not even that serious in a relationship to even take on this experience. And again, like in their relationship, they were talking about the fact that Nick was an absentee partner. Like, he wasn't very like tapped in or checked in with Sandy. Sandy was pretty much doing her own thing. And in the Viall Files, what I had initially thought is when I saw their like age differences, initially I was always just like, that age difference is so crazy. Like, she's in a phase where she's out here having fun, she's living her life, and he's at a stage where he is actually just trying to chill by a lake and paint some stuff. Like, they are on two completely different pages, and he finally acknowledged that they're in two different eras right now. And that is a problem, and Sandy feels like she needs somebody who is also extroverted as her. She's also going to be able to like move around with. She needs somebody who wants to participate in her life and activities and whatnot, and Nick just wasn't that person. So Nick, at the reunion, he is also stating that he had asked Sandy to drop him over to rehab, and she was supportive for a while, but then she ended up going on a trip. He said that she's just been tripping ever since. Like, she's just been out living life and just trying to find herself and really figure her demons out by herself. And period, Sandy, because this was not somebody who you needed to be attached to. And speaking of attachments, she also is reviewing everything that JR is saying in his like one-on-one interviews while he was on the show, and she was just letting him know that, that was very hurtful for her to watch, and she felt that he is a person where he has so much to offer, but because he leads and he leans so heavily into like the more like sexual aspect of things, or he's leaning so heavily into projecting something that is just not him at all, then things are getting lost in translation. So she felt like in their edit, like, it doesn't look like they're really being productive, but they actually were having like, conversations about like spirituality. They were having conversations about like, their partners. Like, they actually were trying to take the best parts of themselves and bring it to the experience, you know. Like, so Nick also kind of like talks about like how deep their connection was. They said that what they did was lean into the physical touch, like physical touch is their love language, and they felt comfortable to explore that with one another. But again, she's adamant that they did not have sex, they did not actually, like, you know, have intercourse or whatever. And at this point in time, and she says the same thing on the Viall Files, and at this point in time, I don't know, she says that JR was extremely performative, how, you know, certain things look a certain type of way, but that's not actually what went down. And I don't know, I hate to say it, but I'm just like, maybe, I think another part of me is kind of starting to lean towards the side of thinking that maybe these people actually did not interact, or they did not have sex, because she even is going back, and she, as you're listening to her kind of like recount her time with JR, it sounds like she was having issues with his perception of things. And I think that because like he was so like forceful and so like forward about like sex and being a freak and saying all like these like inappropriately wild things, it made her uncomfortable. So I think because she had a certain level of uncomfortability, I could kind of see why it could be actually plausible that they didn't actually have sex, and he was just being very performative the entire time. So allegedly, like, Sandy and JR, they have not had any like real communication. And then Zaina jumps up and she's asking him just like, you know, oh, but like, what about this DM? What about this? Like, just like very small things. So I guess like they've been doing like very, very, very minimal communication. But either way, Zaina, that's not your problem. Move on, girl. Back to Sandy and Nick. Sandy and Nick, the way that she talks about the relationship with him, like, I think, like, it's just a lot of love that is felt between the two of them. But, and this is me watching it, when I was watching it for the reunion, she claims that she loves him to the moon and back and everything else like that, but he just can't, you know, he's always crashing out. So I'm just like, okay, so there's some kind of like substance abuse that's involved here. So now when he went up on the Viall Files, he definitely confirmed that he does drink, but he also like abuses like psychedelics and other substances. So it's just like there was other things going on. I am curious to know if Sandy was also indulging in some of that, because then I'm just like, maybe, and she's just better like at holding it all under wraps. So I'm just like, maybe the two of them were just kind of like sparring off of each other, and maybe that also was something that kind of kept them together and integrated with each other. So he also addresses the crash out. So he's addressing the crash out, and it turns out that JR and Sandy lived right above Nick's head. And for that, Chris Colleen,
you raggedy bitch.
You are raggedy. Like, that is not okay. And I could only imagine like how traumatic that was, and like just him freaking out, him hearing like the footsteps and stuff like that. Like, that would have been like a whole lot. When he went on Viall Files, he explained that there was something that happened earlier in the day that made him just, you know, really, I guess he was experiencing like a situation where he was betrayed. So he's going through that situation. Sandy is over here with this other man or whatever, and they're living right above him. Like, it was just a lot that was going on, and he just really wanted to talk to her, but he wasn't able to actually be calm and just be present. He was just being like irate and a little bit crazy and whatnot, and then that really just elevated things to go the way that they went, unfortunately. On the Viall Files, like, another thing that happened was the fact that they did actually give Sandy a bit of a hard time, or a bit of pushback, because they felt like she just wasn't showing up for Nick, or she wasn't being like responsive and considerate or mindful of Nick's feelings during the experience. And in watching it back, she agrees. I'm just like, we could also just acknowledge that of course you feel that way, you feel that lack of attachment once you are actually not in a real relationship. So there's that. Apparently he's still dating the lady that he said that he was dating over at the reunion. The thing that I did not appreciate on the show, on the reunion, and of course it's just Nick and of course it's Nick and Vanessa, so we're not gonna get like top tier interview skills, but I do feel like they did a huge disservice by not actually addressing Scotty for his behavior on the show. Like, to hear about it later on is fine, but it's just there was a lot of things that needed to be said during that reunion based off of the way that Scotty was acting and maneuvering, and he ended up just kind of being able to take it scotch-free and move on and not have to really worry about consequences of things. And lastly, JR is not going on the Viall Files, and I'm okay with that because I'm just like, JR doesn't need to be doing any more press in general. But anyway, for Viall Files, he wanted to charge them $10,000, and like I said, broken clock is right twice a day. I kind of could see why he would charge that astronomically large figure. He already knows that first and foremost, like, they hate him. They know that all the podcasts, like, he said to himself, he's just like, I don't want to be here. Like, I don't want to do this pod. I don't like the people who run the pod. And I know that they have been talking mess about me. So if I know that, to walk into that situation, it would have been crazy. And it would have been. So period. And I understand. So, you know, charge your $10K for it, but he's only charging it for Viall Files specifically. Now, I don't know when he's going to have any other endorsements or when he's going to have any other interviews, and when y'all find out, don't let me know. And that's it. So we are finally wrapped up the Ultimatum season 3. We are done. Thank you so much for rocking with me. Once again, I hope you have a fabulous 2025. Drop down in the comments and let me know all of your thoughts. I'll see you in the next video. Mwah. Take care.